Hello, and welcome to Whiskey with Rye. I'm Rye. The whiskey I'm with today is Woodford Reserve. Every episode, I'll talk about the backstory of the whiskey, the nose on the whiskey, and about the taste of the whiskey when served three different ways: straight, with water, and on the rocks. So for today, again, Woodford Reserve. It is a 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% barley mash bill, which makes it a bourbon. So bourbon by law has to be 51% minimum in the mash, which is basically the recipe that they use. It is a distillery in Kentucky. It is on the Bourbon Trail, which I did about 4 or 5 years ago. And the first batch of episodes that I'm going to do is actually going to take you down the Bourbon Trail that I did with different whiskeys and bourbons from that distillery. So this was the first distillery I ever visited. It is absolutely gorgeous. Probably the prettiest grounds out of everyone except maybe Maker's Mark, but that's a different story. Um, so they are a Brown Forman product. So they do source their whiskey, I believe. So they have a very specific recipe. They have someone else make, and then they barrel it, ship it, and Woodford ages it on site. Woodford comes in at 90.4 proof, which is 45.2% alcohol, which is a very specific proof. So it's proof down from what it comes out of the barrel with water for that specific flavor profile is really what they're looking for. So I'm going to jump in and we'll talk about this a little more. So I am using Glencairns just because I think they give you the most bang for your buck. If you're drinking it neat or with water, you can really experience everything. And I'm going to go ahead and pour two because I'll use I'll use this second glass for ice. So I'm going to put a little more in there just so we can get the full flavor profile. So first the nose, right? Because you're going to experience everything first through the nose. And if you get some on your hands while you're pouring, if you rub them together, you can kind of get the grain that the whiskey uses. So you can kind of figure out the mash bill if you don't know it. So again, this one has a really strong corn note, which I find enjoyable. So on the nose, definitely a lot of caramel, which you'll find pretty much across just about all bourbons that are going to have a lot of caramel. Some vanilla and some slight floral notes on there as well, like fresh cut flowers they're blooming and turning out nicely. A little bit of fruit, maybe some apple or like almost like a little bit of Granny Smith apple. So that's on the nose. So you're going to pick out a bunch of different things. Really standard bourbon is going to be caramel, vanilla, cherry, some oak, notes that you're going to pick out of a bourbon, and that's going to be kind of similar across most bourbons, regardless of their mash bill, just because they have to be a certain thing in order to be bourbons. So they have to be 51% corn. They have to be aged in a charred new oak barrel, and so that's going to be what makes it bourbon. So, all right, let's jump into the taste, shall we? So this is kind of your quintessential bourbon. Um, it is the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby, which is always fun. Um, but yeah, on the taste, you do get a lot of that caramel. Still is definitely still there from the nose. It goes through to the taste as well. And some of that the oak really makes itself a little more present on the finish. It makes your mouth almost like when you have a sour candy that when you salivate so much because of the sourness, it just kind of it pulls that with the wood tannins. I'm also getting a dark chocolate, maybe a little bit of the cherry. I lago. And the cherry is kind of like a cherry liqueur cordial, so it's Like the maraschino cherry with the liqueur cream and coated in dark chocolate is the cherry that I'm pulling from it. And again, that's kind of the quintessential um, bourbon taste that you're going to get. Yeah, and as you go back to it on the finish, that dark chocolate really kind of punches through. It's not like a super super dark chocolate. It's not like it's 90% or something like that. But it's definitely a dark chocolate and maybe a little bit of graham cracker flavor on there. So we are going to add some water and some ice now. I have ice in my handy little Yeti here, so we're just going to pop one cube in, one rock. We'll put that in and let that sit. And then I'm also going to put in some water, just a little bit, not too much, because it is proof down, but just a little bit into the glass, just to let it, kind of get in there. And what the water does is it changes and interacts with the oils that are in the whiskey. So what it will do is it will open up some new flavors, and it will also mute other flavors. So I'm gonna skip over that there's the alcohol taste in all of these whiskeys because that's gonna be there, But the water will kind of help. It'll proof it down a little bit more, which will make that alcohol note a little less noticeable, and then you may be able to pull up, more flavor of profiles, get past the vanilla, get past the caramel, that kind of thing. As you acclimate to those flavors, new ones will show up that'll surprise you, honestly. Um, so yeah, so let that water sit for a little bit, and as you drink whiskey, if you're drinking it straight or something like this with water or on the rocks, as it sits and age, is exposed to the air, it's going to change as well. So you're going to discover new things as you go. That's really going to change in the whiskey, just with the exposure to the air. So again, this is going back to it with some water added. And the nose is definitely muted. It's not as punchy with the caramel. Again, kind of that apple and the floral note really comes forward. And a little bit more of the corn, I would say. So let's give it a taste. Yeah, I like it better neat. Um, the alcohol is a little more forward with the water. It kind of muted all the other flavors. Um, the dark chocolate is pretty gone. A little of the fruit note is still there. It's kind of gone from the cherry to maybe like a strawberry. Oh, there's the dark chocolate. It comes back. But again, it's not as forward with the dark chocolate. I mean, it's still nice, but again, I just prefer the straight as opposed to the water added, at least. So now we've let, can't really see it, but there is an ice cube in there. So that's chill the whiskey, which also does different things to the oils that are in the whiskey. And then the water that obviously is released from the ice cube melting is going to do kind of similar things as well. So I'm not anticipating it's going to be very different, but I know people like it on the rocks or straight or with a little bit of water. So figured I'd give you all three here in one. Oh wow! So the on the rocks Woodford really comes through like a really sweet butter caramel. Like that's a note that's really really forward. A nice soft caramel. Oh wow! It actually on the taste that caramel turns into like buttered corn, which is different. I've never really gotten that before in a whiskey, but it's definitely like a buttered sweet corn, or maybe more like a butter cookie. I think would be a better analogy for that. And then definitely like a wood note there at the end, like oak. Not quite tongue depressor, but like kind of like a sawdust. Like if you're in a woodworking shop or something like that. Um, it's definitely similar to kind of the taste in the air after sauce a piece of wood has been sawed or something like that. And that one was more just straight butter caramel. Yeah, that's nice. I would definitely go straight straight Woodford, and then the Woodford on the rocks, and then the Woodford with water. So yeah, so that is actually going to be it for this first episode. I hope you enjoyed the talk about Woodford Reserve. This is really readily available pretty much everywhere. Every liquor store is going to have this. About $45 to $50, I think, for the 750 ml bottle, which is it's not crazy. It's not not too out there. From Lago, who you met a little bit ago, and myself, thank you for joining me for Whiskey with Rye, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.